back to the most number professional sports channel on YouTube. Welcome back to Swivel Chair Sports. I'm your host, Sexual Work Burkle, here with the host today, Aaron. Go and say hi, Aaron.
Hi.
Alright, please make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content. Other than that, let's go ahead and get into it. So, in this video, we'll be talking about the 49ers offseason plans after coming up just short in Super Bowl 58 to the Kansas City Chiefs. They've got a few things they've got to get ironed out this offseason as far as cap goes. A few free agents that they've got the potential of losing. But honestly, in my opinion, nothing too crazy that's going to make you be like, oh, if they don't re-sign all these guys, are they not going to are they going to take a huge step back next year? No, probably not. They're probably going to be fine next year, regardless of what happens with these guys. But just taking a look at who they kind of have to look at re-signing. Randy Gregory, outside linebacker. Chase Young, obviously, who was kind of maligned for his lack of effort in the NFC Championship game, just to come out against the Chiefs and cause havoc in the first half. So that was great. Thanks for pissing him off, media. You got Javon Kinlaw, Tashawn Gibson, who I think he did something in this game, right? That was like pretty important. I can't remember. I feel like he's been important this offseason. Ray McLeod obviously was the punt returner on the muff punt that the Niners had. Not his fault, just mentioning he was the punt returner. It bounced off his teammate's leg and then he failed to fall on it. So Chiefs recovered.
If you want to kind of look at it this way, it bounced off of number 28's foot and then number 3 muffed it.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I guess Ray McLeod did muff it after it hit off his foot. Yeah, that is true.
28-3, the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl score.
I
didn't back to Shanahan.
I didn't even notice that the other guy was number 28. To be honest, I knew Ray was 3, but I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, 28-3. Okay, cool. Pew, right over my head. You got Chris Conley, special teams, like God. Apparently, I don't know what the heck happened this game, but Chris Conley all of a sudden becomes the greatest punt return man in the history, or punt return defender in the history of football. Juwan Jennings, who would have potentially won Super Bowl MVP had the Niners won this game, being only the second player and first since Nick Foles to have both a passing touchdown and a receiving touchdown in the Super Bowl. So shout out to Juwan Jennings. And then Terrence Mitchell, who's also kind of a key part of that Niners secondary. But Aaron, if you had to point to one of these players that's kind of sticks out to you as being like the biggest, and maybe it's one I didn't mention too, because I didn't mention everybody, as the biggest potential loss for the Niners this offseason, who do you think it would be?
Well, it's got to be either Kinlaw or Chase Young. With how stacked that D line is, having Chase Young on the other side of Bosa is just a nasty combination. As we kind of saw in the Super Bowl, they kind of wrecked a little bit of havoc there on Mahomes and did a good job of keeping him in the pocket with their disciplined rush lanes. But I don't really see how they're going to be able to really bring anybody back because they don't have a lot of cap space.
Yeah, they don't exactly have a lot. They're probably gonna have to do really well in the draft, which lucky for them, they have a history of doing. So, good on John Lynch's part. He's been great at drafting in the last few years. Really put this team together nicely. Supposedly they knew what they were doing with Brock Purdy. I think that was I think that was total luck. No one drafts a specific person at the Mr. Irrelevant spot that you wouldn't just be comfortable signing as an undrafted free agent. Come on. Like, if you wanted Brock Purdy, you probably would have just drafted or would have just signed him after the draft and taken somebody else as kind of like taking a flyer on him. So do not sit there and tell me like, oh, we scouted Brock Purdy like a hawk. We knew he was going to be this good from day one, man. Bullshit. No, you didn't. I think you're right with Chase Young being a huge loss in theory. However, because he was such a late addition to the team, and they were doing just fine without him, if we're being honest, I don't see that being a huge loss per se. Kinlaw, I could see being big. Randy Gregory, I could see being big. Um, but I just don't know if Chase Young was there long enough to make a substantial impact on the players in the locker room to where they might lose morale or anything like that if Chase Young's not there. I get the talent on the field, yes, but at the end of the day, I think what he gives you because Chase Young is so, or not Chase Young, because Joey Bosa is so good on the opposite side. Not Joey Bosa, jeez Louise, because Nick Bosa is on the other side. I think whoever you put over there's got a good chance of being kind of a game wrecker. Obviously, not to Chase Young's extent, probably, but because Nick Bosa causes so much havoc himself, he's going to create, or he's going to attract a lot of double teams and stuff like that. I think the opposite guy's opposite side of him is going to be successful regardless of who it is.
I think part of Chase Young's value that maybe you're not necessarily taking into account. He's only like 24, 25 years old.
True, he's young.
So a lot of that value comes with not only just how good he is, but he's young, so you'd be able to sign him for a long time. Whereas, Randy Gregory, he's 31. Kim, he's 26, so that's still young as far as the NFL goes. But Chase Young, a lot of his value comes with his age.
For sure. I think my main concern with Chase is that if they do keep him around, is he going to fully buy in? Because that was obviously an issue with him this season, and he was only there for half the year. So, like, if you can't, and not only was he only there for half a year, he went from one of the worst teams in the NFL to one of the best teams in the NFL. So, I don't really understand how you have an attitude problem.
I don't think it's just him. There were I mean, if you want to look at the Lions game, everybody wants to throw out that rush that uh, the Lions scored on and saw him kind of loping behind. There were other players doing the exact same thing. It wasn't just him. So the whole
Yeah.
defense got called out. I mean, sure, he got singled out because he's a big name, and maybe he got singled out because he was the new kid on the block and um, wasn't there all season. But it wasn't just him that had an opportunity to make the play and didn't because he wasn't going full speed.
Mhm. Yeah, and I do think that is something. Obviously, the bigger your name you are, the more criticism you're going to attract because people know who you are, and they it's easier to criticize somebody that you know as opposed to just Joe Schmo who's out there loafing around, but he's also like the second or third string cornerback or something like that, to where he's only on the field 20% of the defensive snaps. Um,
And
so,
when push came to shove, he showed up in that game in the
He
second
did.
half.
No, he did. Well, not just that, but
So
in the Super Bowl, he was really really good. Uh, caused Mahomes to be uncomfortable a lot, and drove him towards Bosa's side, where Bosa was a lot of times there to kind of chase him back the other way, which created a lot of not only pressures on Mahomes but sacks and forced him to throw the ball away in moments where he probably would have typically extended it, been able to get outside that pocket. So Chase Young obviously did a really good job at that. Um, I just don't. I also just don't see how they. You said it. There's just no possible way Chase Young's coming back.
they might be able to finagle, maybe cut a couple of players and get Kinlaw, but
Yeah,
Chase Young is,
he gone
you know, in the area of like 13 million ish.
at least.
Kinlaw's only in like 5.5,
Yeah.
so that's quite a big difference, and you might be shortchanging yourself in other areas if you try
Oh,
and
for sure.
push for
Well,
Chase Young.
and then you also got to think about the other stuff, like the future. Whenever you got to extend Brock Purdy, potentially extend Christian McCaffrey, Debo Samuel, George Kittle, all those offensive pieces that made you the best offensive team in the league this year.
No, the 49ers will just draft another seventh round quarterback. That'll be,
Yeah, because they
the
scouted
next
him
Tom
so
Brady.
flippin' well. Exactly. Yeah, because they knew exactly who they took. That's just such bullshit. Do not sit there and tell me you knew what Brock Purdy was gonna be. You liar. You got lucky and you know it. Um, yeah, so they're gonna have to. John Lynch is gonna have to put some good drafts together here in the next upcoming years because they're just gonna continue to lose players more and more as the years go on. Do I think it's gonna affect them this next season? No, because they're not losing enough high end talent this year. Um, but the amount of high end players that they're going to lose to free agency is just going to increase probably every single season from here on out. Because now that you found your quarterback, according to you guys, you're going to have to
And
pay
he can
him.
barely afford rent and has to have a roommate. He's gonna need a
He's
big
going to
contract.
he's going to need a big payday, exactly. Yeah, and that's coming up here sooner than you think. He's going to have to sign an extension in what, like 2 years? I think I think he'll actually sign it
At the end of
probably
next
next off.
season,
Yeah.
I
So
think.
he'll sign it at the end of next season. So he'll sign it next off season. It'll go into effect not that next year, but the year after that. At that point, I mean, you're going to start losing McCaffrey. You're going to start losing Samuel, Ayuk, Kittle, Williams. You're in for some lean years here in about 3 or 4. So if I'm San Francisco, I'm finding a way to improve in any way I can, despite not having a ton of cap space. Because if you don't win it within these next few seasons, I don't know if you ever will under Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy at least. So
I think
uh,
he's got 2 more seasons. He's got 2024, 2025, 2025, 2026. So after 2026
it would
is when
kick
he's
in,
done.
right? Or
No, that's
he
when
becomes
yeah,
eligible.
that's when he becomes a free agent. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he can sign it next off season. It would kick in not that following season, but the season after that. Yeah. Um. So yeah, it might look rough here in 3 4 years for y'all, San Francisco, unless Brock Purdy turns into a pumpkin within the next 2 years and you pull a Jimmy Garoppolo and just ship him off to Vegas to die and bring in somebody else. So, you got anything else to add, Aaron? Did anything I missed? All right. Well,
Unless you want to talk about if Shanahan's the coach for the future for them.
we could talk about that. Yeah, we could talk about that. If you want to boil my blood, sure, we could talk about that. No, I don't think so.
No.
I at this point no. Before this season, I would have said probably. You can't lose not just two Super Bowls as a head coach while having double digit leads. That's my big caveat is the double digit lead thing in the Super Bowl at halftime and then losing the game. Not once, but twice as a head coach. Not twice total, but 3 times as a head coach or offensive coordinator. It's embarrassing. And I don't know if he's going to be able to get this team over the hump because of things like not preparing your team for overtime.
What about the fact that the two quarterbacks he lost to were the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, and the second greatest quarterback of all time, Patrick Mahomes?
That's an important detail for sure, but when you factor in the reason they probably lost those games is because of either ill preparation or lack of preparation, I guess, um, or or just flat out dumb decision making during the game, like calling passing plays up 28-3 with in the fourth quarter or at the end of the third quarter, I guess. But yeah, like stupid shit like that. Like to where there's been literal research done. There's a video out there on YouTube, I'm pretty sure, where they simulated what would happen if the Niners or not the Niners, if the Falcons would have kneeled the ball every single snap after going up 28-3. You know what happens? They
Win.
win. Just kneeling it out for like what 7 drives in a row. They win the game.
Just wasting all 40
Just
seconds of the clock.
yeah, yeah. And obviously you wouldn't do that, but to somehow lose a game because you're throwing passes on first down, just stupid decision making, not having your team prepared for a potential overtime in a game that you know is going to come down to the wire. Stupid, bad preparation. Um, and then let's not forget the first time he lost to Mahomes, he didn't just lose. He didn't lose to the at the time he did not lose to the second greatest quarterback of all time. He lost to a second year Mahomes, who was in his first Super Bowl appearance and was down double digit points at halftime. So it's not like he beat, this season. If he would have if he would have lost to this year's Mahomes, totally different story. The reason he lost to this year's Mahomes is because of bad preparation.
But I think the overall offense that he lost to the Chiefs the first time was much better than this one. I mean, sure, Mahomes is, you know, better. To what degree, that's debatable this year, but Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelsey, Damian Williams, I'd say that offense is arguably better than this one.
I
And
mean,
when it
that's
came
no
down to it,
question.
Brock Purdy and that offense, they left the game multiple times with the lead, and that defense was the ones that gave up, Patrick Mahomes points.
Unless you got anything else to add, Aaron, I think that'll do it for this episode of Switcher Sports. I'm your host, Zach Burkle. Here's my co-host today, Aaron. Go and say bye, Aaron.
Bye.
All right, please make sure to like and subscribe. Other than that, deuces.